Hello guys, another video today. This is one that potentially nobody's ever asked for, but I wanted to do a short video regarding the differences between the higher end of the mid-range Sony three-head decks. So we're talking at the decks that are just below the ES level. Now, there are about 6 or 7 different versions of this top one. This is a 611S. As you can tell, most of my videos are about 611Ss. I love the decks. I do a lot of repairs for them. I've got some spares and I kind of know these inside out. I get a lot of these sent to me and they all have the same common problems. The common problems are belts, the rotary encoder, what else? The connector on the back of the output plugs, that also suffers from dry solder. The record head suffers from dried solder, and various other bits and bobs related to the transport. So you can have, it starts at I think 601S, and you get 603S, 607S, 610S, 611S is kind of the highest end of that version. Now, a little bit of time later, Sony decided to bring out basically the same deck, but with 661S as the code. Alright, now this has got Dolby S on it, this has got Dolby S on it. Some of the earlier ones, like the 411, they don't have Dolby S. So you've got to kind of watch out, stick to what you're looking for, and watch out what you're buying, basically. But I want to just flag the differences between these two, because there are some differences, and a lot of people have found, I found 2 people in the last 2 or 3 months who have bought this deck, and then it's had problems and they've bought this deck for parts thinking it would work and it won't, and vice versa. They've got a 611S they want to replace, need some parts, found a 661S that's broke, and again, not all the parts will work on this one. So primarily the main differences on the front panel here is a little bit of a change in layout from the bias and record level. Still got the same monitor button, still got the same selector and everything else, but a little bit of a layout issue and change. So because of that layout issue and change, the board at the back of this here will also not be swappable between the two. Left hand side is pretty much exactly the same. If I can try and get it on camera, the front panels are different. This has got a really nice kind of brushed effect on it, which is a bit like the ES decks. This is flat black, so let me see if I can get that on the camera. So there we have the brushed effect to the 661. And then if I move up to the 611, it's kind of got a brushed effect, but it's a lot darker, so it's very difficult. This is almost like a light grey effect on there, and this one is a lot darker. You can also see a dark patch above the MPX filter button there, which used to say Dolby S. I think I've got one of the stickers kicking about somewhere. On this one, generally doesn't seem to be able to be shipped with that sticker at all. So the second difference is the door. So on this version, the 661S, we have a big chunky door that says 3-head and all about the ceramic cassette holder. And if we look up on this one, the door itself is a little bit thinner. The transport sits in a different place and is kind of set back a little bit on this one. So if you want to use this door on there, it won't work. If you want to use that door on there, it does work, but it sticks out. It kind of looks a bit wrong. So they aren't interchangeable. They look nicer. I think this 3-head door looks a bit nicer than this one. This kind of reminds me of a Technics, but this transport, although is almost the same, doesn't sit in the right place. So let's open them up and we'll have a look at the internals, and I'll show you the prime difference between these two, which makes, in my view, this one better than this one. So here are then, 611S is on the right, 661S on the left. Instantly you can see that the board's a lot smaller on this side than this side. This is the newer one, this is the 611S. Different power supplies, same outputs, just about, different plugs. Same kind of board layout, but this one is a bit more compact. Like, they've done something about this one. They've actually looked at the whole deck, and rather than just a code change, they have actually updated the entire layout of the deck. The power supply, the way that it connects to the board is different. This has one large ribbon cable rather than 2 smaller ribbon cables over here. But the prime thing I wanted to raise with this is that although the transports visually are the same, there are some things that are different. So if you were to try and fix the newer one, the 661, with using parts from the earlier one, some things won't work. And I've learnt this through experience and through pain, because in the past I've tried to fix 661s, I've gone to my spares, I've bought a spare deck, and it's just not possible to do it in some areas, and I'll show you why. So this is a 661, this is one with a chunkier door. As I said to you, the transport is kind of set back to allow for that chunky door, and this little metal frame on the top here is what sets that transport back. If we look in the other version, it's set all the way far forwards, and it's up against the this kind of bracket there. So doors not interchangeable between the two. Back of the transport is identical. Same motors, same wiring, same setup. Everything is identical. The only one thing that is not interchangeable is this plug on the back. Okay, so this plug on the back of the transport, this is a 661. This is essentially your power plug for the motors and the capstan and everything else. This one is 1 pin larger than that one, just to make life more difficult for you. And aside from that, generally the rest of the transport is identical. All the internals, all the bits and bobs inside, all the white plastic, the cogs, the gears and everything, all exactly the same. So if you're looking for parts from one and you find, you know, a cheap 661 or cheap 611, then some parts are interchangeable, except for this power board for the motors, along with the two motors that are on it. If this isn't your problem, and whatever your transport problem is, it's more internal, you're good. But for the motors, it's a no-go. You can just unplug the motors, unplug these, and you can remove these motors from this board. But it takes a lot of desoldering. It's a pain in the backside, to be honest with you. But it is possible. There's one major difference between the decks, and I'll show you why I think this is why the upgrade that Sony did, someone put a little bit of thought into it, and I think it saved a lot of these decks. This is why these are actually more expensive, harder to find, and generally it's a deck that you don't see very often. I'd say these are quite rare as far as it goes, and here's why. And it's absolutely the simplest thing in the world, but why they didn't think of it, I don't know. So both of these decks are now plugged in. If we look at the 611S, if we look in the back of the transport, if you can see it, that capstan is running. That capstan is running constantly. As soon as you plug this deck in, from morning, noon and night, that motor will run and run and run. And I think this is contributing to a lot of the motor failures and parts failures that these decks are quite susceptible to, especially belt failures as well. The amount of these I see coming in with belt failures is unbelievable, and that capstan is running constantly. This is a 661 and it's also plugged in. I'm just hovering over the 240 there stupidly, and you'll notice that capstan is not running. On this deck, that capstan will only run when you press play. If I lean round here and press play now, running. So I think this contributes towards the fact that not a lot of these decks are as worn or as used or require so many spare parts, because they're just not running as much. Even if you left it, I don't know, overnight and went on holiday, did that once a year, over the period of time these decks have existed, you're reducing that amount of wear and tear by that motor not running. So yes, this is probably not the most exciting video that anybody's ever seen, but I really just want to highlight a lot of the changes that Sony did. If you notice on the back there, this is the newer deck, the 661. All that there is all circuit boards, printed circuit boards. On the other one, the 611, you've actually still got rotational switches in there. You're still dealing with stuff that's more mechanical than anything else. They really made some thought and difference. You just don't see these around. It's really unusual. I don't know whether they made these in smaller numbers or they were only shipped in certain regions. They've just got loads of little nice touches. Like somebody at Sony got hold of this deck and went, right, this is a really successful deck. Loads of people have bought it. How can we actually make it better? And that's something you don't see in the audio world, I don't think, especially from this time frame. It's just not something that you experience very much. Even down to the little things like this little chassis earth here. You can pop that on and off quite nicely as you're working away to it. So if you're looking at one of these decks or you're looking to buy one, there's a couple of things I would say. So I've just serviced this 611S and I try and make them back to as factory as I can. And the telltale signs that someone's been in messing around is this cable tidy is the cables are hardly never in it. Okay, same with that cable tidy down there. As soon as you take that transport to bits, they take that off and they forget about it. These little ball-ended cable securers, these are standard Sony, should be that from factory. Okay, if they're missing, someone's been in. And there is one simple thing that you can look with, you can tell within about 5 or 6 seconds as to whether somebody's been into these decks and took that transport apart. You see that grey and blue wire there? That grey and blue wire goes from the power board, which is this one here, round to the light on the back of the transport, which is what when you're playing a tape, it shines through your tape. Nobody ever houses that wire where it should go. So once you've been doing your servicing, you need to remove this completely. There's a little notch missing out at the bottom of the PCB there, which is a little place you can hold it. And nobody ever seems to do it. I don't know why. I'm just double checking. I've done it on this one. Yeah, I've replaced that one as well. I've just serviced this one as well. Unfortunately, I don't have any cable tidies for this one, and the way that the board's laid out is a little bit different. But certainly for a 611, they're your telltale signs if somebody's decided to have a bit of a play and a bit of a go themselves. Screwing the main board down there, screwing the main board down there. Those two screws constantly get mixed up. I think on this deck there's actually one missing. That's another telltale sign. And the other one, if you got a picture of the back, these screws which hold the back plate on, if you need to remove the main board, you need to remove the back plate. Nobody ever seems to get these screws the right way around when they go back in. There is one silver screw that goes there, alright? That silver screw is like a self-tapper because it goes into plastic. If they're the wrong way around, or that's got a gold screw in it, someone's been in there. And usually the ones that have faults on the output stage, as in, like, you know, there's no sound coming out of it, you have a look. A lot of them, they won't have that silver screw there, it'll be a gold screw. And because of the gold screw, every time you plug a plug in and out, it wobbles it about and the solder cracks and eventually it won't work. So, there we go. A quick kind of 10-12 minute video just while I had 2 of these on a bench. I've actually got 3, there's another one down there. I'm inundated with them, to be honest with you. I really enjoy fixing them, and I've learnt a lot about these decks, and there seems to be a lot that require repair. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. Maybe this was useful to anybody who's been fixing or playing about with these decks. If you've got one of these decks and you're struggling with it, I've got loads of videos on them. If you need a little bit of extra help, then drop me a line, drop me an email. Somewhere up there, somewhere is my contact details. But otherwise, hopefully you can use this video to help fix your decks if you want to. Have a great day, and if you enjoyed this video and enjoy cassettes, then please like and subscribe. Bye bye.